Hey everybody, welcome back to the Majinbuusha podcast on the UpUrXP platform that you can find on anywhere that you listen to your shows or your podcasts. I am Majinbuusha, and tonight we're going to talk about two subjects. First of all, of course, we're going to do the NFL. We're going to go over that, and then second of all, which we're going to, secondly, I should say, we're going to talk about the Smites drama that's going on today. And actually, let's go ahead and do that one first. Let's go ahead and talk about what's going on in Smite, the Pro League right now. So right now we have a situation where Layers of the Tartarus Titans was going to not play the split because he needed to focus on his mental health and things that he needs to work on, which is completely commendable, understandable, and I'm glad that he's concerned about his own well-being, whether that be physical, mental, emotional, etc. And in this case, it's mental. Um, Basically, what happened was Hyris said, "Yo, but what if we allowed you an exception to where this phase you can play from home, but you have to be at the LAN event?" So of course, why wouldn't he say yes? So of course he said yes. Now a lot of people are upset that this is an exception that's been made. Some people aren't, but mostly, you know how the Smite community is. They get upset about something and they outrage and they just go bananas. And it hasn't got to the bananas part yet, but everybody just has this opinion that um, this should not have been allowed. And I feel like people are going to pin this onto Layers, and I don't think that's fair. Layers, the person who said, "Hey, I'm not going to play. I need to focus on myself. So we're going to be upset with him for playing when they gave him an option to online." The company made the exception, not Layers. And I think Layers made the right decision. I think that the Titans made the right decision based on what was given to them. Why would you not do that? That's a very important role in the game, of course, but one of the best players in the role. Um, Last split wasn't as hot as he's been in the past, but Layers is that dude when it comes to jungle. And I don't know why you should be upset at him when he's the one that said, "Hey, I can dip, it's cool." And then he got a way in. He didn't beg for it, he didn't plead for it. He made a decision on his own that he would not play, and then they gave him a decision that he couldn't refuse. And the Titans couldn't refuse. So don't be upset at them. You need to be upset with the company that makes the exception. And honestly, you shouldn't be upset with the exception that's been made, because here's where I sit on this currently. Now, when everything went to LAN 3 years ago or so, I didn't think it was healthy for Smite to do that. Getting rid of the NA versus EU feel that had become traditional in this game, it just didn't sit well with me. It meant that European players would have to sacrifice a lot of things in their life to be able to even compete at the highest level. And we saw after 1 year and during the first year how many people dipped out. I mean, I remember Emilzy dipping out at one point, and he was one of the best supports, like top three supports in the game at the time. If he came back today and got a lot of practice in, probably could still be top four, top five, maybe better. Who knows? Then you see all these pros this past season, adapting Tricks Tank, Zyrus. Like I just, how many more do I need to name? Those are just three, and they're all on the same team. Um, I think since then, Deathwalker hasn't wanted to be SPL, and there's going to be others. I mean, Pretty Prime plays in the SEC. Johnny is playing in the SEC. Again, I'm going to be missing some names because I'm doing this at 10 p.m. on Friday night when I woke up at 6:45 in the morning to go to work and be at work all day until about 8:30 or so. So forgive me if I'm not remembering all the names, but there's plenty of really good players that just aren't in the league right now and haven't been. Here's why I don't think it matters anymore. After 3 years, the competition of the league has gotten a lot better. Look at this past split. The Valkyries are the only team that really didn't have a legit chance to get in to the Phase 2 playoffs, but they still were competitive. They found a way to win some games, win a set or two. And this Valkyries team is way better than what the one last year looked like. And for them to be competitive going into Phase 3, we could actually have 8 competitors out of the 8 SPL teams. That team has grown a lot. They've gotten 2/3 of a year now together for practice. They've got this Phase 3 coming up and the Worlds likely. This team is going to be competitive against all the other teams. The last year's Valkyries, you couldn't say that. Year before that, we had 2 horrible teams, and that's just what it is. But here we are this year, and we have this situation with layers that prompted it. There's so much to this. They made an exception for a player with mental health issues, which I totally get. Again, I understand, and that's something that I'm happy for the player that they've got a way to play still. But this is just a further slap into the face to the Europeans, to LATAM, anyone that's not in NA already. It's a slap in the face to them because of the amount of years that they've had to miss important holidays with their families, family members' birthdays, all their friends that they have back where they're from that they don't get to spend time with anymore. They miss every Christmas because of Worlds being in the first week or two in January. They miss Thanksgiving because we have a qualifying LAN or something like that around that time frame as well. So they can't leave at important times of the year because that's when they've got to be prepping for the biggest, most important tournament of their life, potentially. And, I mean, do we got to mention the visa issues that we've had the last 2 or 3 years with this? I mean, the Warriors didn't get to come in until the middle of Phase 3 last season. And then we had other issues before that for other teams. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there were issues there. Issues the previous season because of that from orgs as well, which they said was the problem, and it turns out they just still have these issues regardless if there's orgs or not. So that's where we're sitting at right now. I mean, and let's think about this. Let's remember what the SPL looked like before this, how competitive, how healthy it's got. The SPL, this is the last season I remember, and correct me if I'm incorrect here. The last online season I remember, there were 4 really good EU teams, 2 really good NA teams, and then the 5th EU team could slaughter all the other NA teams. You had 6 teams that were having a shot at winning Worlds out of having 6 teams per region. 6 NA and 6 European. So, do we want to go back to where half the league is not competitive again? to where it's not going to be as exciting again? Are we going to go risk what we've gotten in quality at this point to go back to what was not as quality for the sake of better competition? And I don't know at this point what the right answer is. I don't think there is a right answer, a correct answer, a fix it type of situation, because there's a major issue on both sides no matter what you look at. You either A, are putting, again, the international players at a disadvantage for their personal lives. And I get that North American players move to NA2, but they're a lot easier to go back to their homes during break times than the Europeans are. So I can't even say that North Americans are at that much of a disadvantage. This is still something they are familiar with and can deal with and are able to comply. And then on the other side, if we're talking about, if we're not talking about if it's better for the players or not, we're talking about what's worse for the league. And unfortunately, I don't think there can be a happy medium at all, no matter what you do now. You're sacrificing more than just going back to online lands. Just remember, we didn't have guaranteed prize pools, really. I was talking to Mogner about this earlier. He mentioned that. Imagine that we now have guaranteed salaries, top tier equipment, better production. Always had sponsors, but these sponsors seem to have been better. Um, I just, I think we also get to a point to where we're allowing another 20 players in the scene that might not be ready to be competitive at the top level to have to forcibly play in that top level. And I just don't know. I mean, I just don't know. Like, you have to put in so much time to be in that type of area in Smite, to be at that top level. We're talking about 48 players, right? No, sorry, 40 starting players out of the entire game. Now we're going to bring the number up, sorry. We're going to bring the number up to 60. Is it reasonable? Should it be that much of a difference? On paper, you would think not, but we have evidence to say otherwise. And that's just rough. I think there are. I think this is just a situation where you're aware of horrible things on both sides that can happen with a decision of going back to LAN or staying, or I'm sorry, going back to online or staying at LAN. And at this point, business wise, does it make sense to go back to online? You don't have to fight with visa issues, but you don't get necessarily the amount of money that's guaranteed. Because then we're talking about flying players to lands. And that's going to cost them money at the end of the day. It might cost them more money than what the guaranteed salaries are. We don't know that. We're not behind those chairs. We're not the ones that can see all the analytics and make the decision from a business standpoint. We just don't have that capability. So I'm just simply saying here, at this point, I don't think it is smart to revert to what it used to be. But I also think that you can't really be too upset at a player for wanting to step down to focus on his mental health, who then got told he can get an exception for this phase. How can you be mad at him? How can you be mad at the team? And honestly, how can you be mad at the league? Would you not want to see one of the best players competing week in and week out? Is it fair? I don't know that it is fair. I don't know that it's not fair. I do understand that it's a situation that it's a company that can make any business decision they want to do, and at the end of the day, we have to live with it, whether we like it or not. Same thing with the casting situation for the leagues. At the end of the day, it's just not worth that much of a fight. Because what are we going to do, right? Some leagues still have a decent amount of casting going on. We struggle because everyone wants to play here, so we can't really find casters. The only reason we've had cast most of the time recently has been because of So You Think You Can Cast competition. If not for that, we probably wouldn't have had any broadcasts, or at least maybe only one or two. That's a different situation, a different conversation for another day. All right, let's move on to the SPL here. I'm sorry, the NFL. I think I said SPL again. I want to pour some water while I load this page up. And the first thing we need to talk about is, before I get into any games that are coming on Sunday, we need to talk about what happened Thursday. Thursday, Tua Tagovailoa got slung to the ground. It was a clean play in which his head hit the ground first. Concussion, out of the game, can't come back in. Standard things you would expect. The other issue is that this kind of also happened on Sunday. Now, the team says it was more of a back, or I think it was a back injury or neck injury or something like that. I think they said back. The way Tua got up, he did not look like he was all there. He was wobbling. He could not, under his own power, really control himself 100%. So the decision to say, "Oh yeah, you're okay. You can start Thursday night. Let's get you in there." And it's a close game for a lot of the game, low scoring but close. And then that play happens. He gets slung to the ground. He's trying to make something happen, trying to make a throw downfield, scan what he can do. Hi, Riley Cat. How you doing, baby? And he just gets slung by guys just doing his job, trying to sack him, trying to, force it to the next down. And he gets carted off. Now, luckily, it was reported later that he was in good condition, but it was awfully scary. So scary that it makes me worried about his future. That's probably 2 concussions, not only in back-to-back games, but one from Sunday. And then he had to travel on Wednesday or Tuesday to play the game on Thursday. I don't think he ever should have been allowed to play. I think that's horrible management by the Miami Dolphins. Miami has been lucky this year. They had a miracle 28-point fourth quarter against the Ravens. They got outgained by 280 plus yards by the Bills, and they find a way to win that game. They have been lucky to find these wins in those 2 weeks. Now they take a loss, and now they might not have their quarterback for a while. I think that the Dolphins mismanaged this, and they're going to suffer with questions for the rest of the season. But that's enough about that situation. Let's talk about the games. The first game you'll be able to watch will be in London, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The Vikings are going to be traveling there to face the Saints. The Saints have been disappointing in my eyes. They have probably the best receiver core in the league. They have Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Chris Olave. That's an exceptional receiver core. They have one of the best running backs in all of football, Alvin Kamara. And then Jameis, we saw flashes of what he could do last year. And he played well. But it's not been all together for the Saints on offense this season. And it worries me. What I'm not worried about are the Vikings. Yes, they come off of a nail-biting win against the much-improved Detroit Lions. I get that. And I understand that the Eagles ran it down their throat the week before. But Kamara's been cold. Taysom Hill has been their best run option when that's happened. And I don't see the Saints moving the ball that well against the Vikings. This could very well be a 17-10 type of game. It could easily happen. Crazy things happen, and I wouldn't see this not happening. I just 17-10 is something I could see, and I'm going to take Vikings -3 for this game. Next up, we got the Bills at the Ravens. How was this not a prime time game, first of all? How is this not a 4 o'clock game or an 8 o'clock game? I just don't understand. I don't. I mean, the 2 8 o'clock games, I get it. But why is it not one of these 4 o'clock games? This is crazy. You have Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson, the two of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the National Football League, going head-to-head. Both are fun, electric-style running backs. The Bills are favored by 3 on the road at the Ravens, and I think that the Bills are going to bounce back and play better football in terms of scoring this week, because we've seen that the Ravens secondary, thanks to the Dolphins, is susceptible, and it's still injured. Remember that they were missing 3 or 4 of their safeties and corners when the Ravens played Miami. That's also part of it, so keep that in mind. Other than that, Ravens defense has played well. But the thing is, I don't know how they stop Stephon Diggs. I don't know how they stop Dawson Knox. I just do not see it. And on the other side, the Bills' defense is just better than what the Ravens' defense is and has been. This Bills defense has been stout. And I think that this Bills team will bounce back and win by at least 6 or 7 points this game. So here I am, taking the Bills on the road as the favorite at Baltimore, -3. Next game up, the Bears at the Giants, also known as the Snooze Fest. Giants lost their first game of the season this past Monday night. The Bears have been horrible to watch. These two teams are basically equally as poor. I just in this situation where these teams are both this bad, I've got to consider three things. A, who's the better coach? B, who's the better quarterback? C, who's the better defense? The better defense is probably the Bears. Because it's not like they're facing Aaron Rodgers for a second time already. The better offense, arguably the Giants. Or better quarterback is not arguably. The better quarterback is probably Justin Fields. However, they limit him a lot. So it's kind of a stalemate to me. So then who's the better head coach? Both two first-year head coaches, Eberflus versus Brian Daboll. We know where Daboll comes from. We know where Eberflus comes from. Daboll from the Bills, Eberflus from the Colts. They were the offensive and defensive coordinators for those teams. I like Daboll slightly more. But it's just very slightly. So I've got one side has a better defense. It's a push for the quarterback, and it's basically a push for the coaches. I'm gonna have to take the points in this. I'll take Bears +3, but I think Giants are gonna find a way to win. There's no real DVOA, or there's no real secret to why one team would be way better than the other one in this game. It's just a game with two bad teams, and that's just what it is. I don't have much more than that to say for it. Next up, we got the Browns at the Falcons. Browns are -1 on the road. Falcons went on the road to beat the Seattle Seahawks at the Seahawks. Browns have been impressive in the run game, but do we expect an offensive prowess from Jacoby Brissett in terms of passing against this Atlanta defense? I don't think so. I think the corners are good. The safeties are questionable. You're going to have to win this game on the ground, and Grady Jarrett is pretty good against the run. The rest of it's a little questionable on the Atlanta defensive side. Then we'll flip it around. Browns defense is hurt. They're not peaking right now. Patterson might be out of the game, so he's questionable. You gotta keep an eye on that. He's a big part of that offense. Kyle Pitts, Drake London has been looking really good this season. Mariota's given a little spark with his legs at times. I think I'm gonna roll with Atlanta +1 here. I think Atlanta's gonna find a way to be better with their offense versus what the Cleveland defense currently gives you, which is just based off of injuries that are going on right now. So I'm about to go to Falcons +1 at home. Next up, Jaguars at the Eagles. Jaguars are +6.5 on the road. Eagles favored by just under a touchdown, so a touchdown extra point covers if you're an Eagles fan. And I've been back and forth on this all week, trying to decide what I believe in. I think the Jaguars are as good as they've shown this year. I think they are going to be really good, having a legitimate coach, not even just a legitimate coach, but a Super Bowl winning head coach that was great with young talent and developing them, which is very much unlike what they had last year. An unexperienced coach who didn't know what he was doing in this league. Can't fault him, though. He took the paycheck, and he thought he really could do it. And it turns out he couldn't. But this Jaguars defense and offense are improved. They're improved, and while the Eagles have been flying high for sure, they've been able to run all over just about everyone they faced this year. I think the Eagles will win this game, but I think this is going to be close. I think the Eagles win by 3 or 4 points. I think Jacksonville and Lawrence keep it close in this game. I don't think they can pull off the win this time, but I do think they keep it close. Chargers at the Texans. Chargers are -6 on the road. I am leaning taking the Texans plus the 6 here. It's just the Chargers are missing Keenan Allen. The Texans beat this team 40-10 last year in this spot or some crazy thing like that. Davis Mills had one of his best games against this Chargers defense, and this Texans team is a fighting team. They don't just lay over. They fight their way back into things, and I think this is a backdoor cover type of situation. I think they keep this within 4 points, and I will take Houston plus 6. Next up, the Jets plus 3.5 at the Steelers. I have no clue what I'm going to do here. Zach Wilson is back, yes. Steelers defense missing its best offensive player for the season, likely. They're just not the same without TJ Watt. That Jets defense is pretty bad, though, but so is the offense for the Steelers. It's just a quarterback situation. They are talented everywhere else. Receiver talent is great. Running back talent is great. I don't want to do this, but I got to go Jets plus 3.5. You can't convince me this game's more than a field goal unless something crazy happens. I just don't see it. Next up, Seahawks on the road at the Lions, who are favored by 3.5 at home. I think the Lions absolutely destroy the Seahawks offensively. Defensively, they're going to give up some yardage to Geno Smith. But I think this is a game that the Lions win by 9 or more. I think they just have so much offensive firepower that's going to be trouble for the Seahawks to keep up at points and times. Seahawks defense is a soft defense, usually a cover 3 type of defense. So that means you're going to be able to find spots in the zone to be able to create gap and chunk yardage. And Goff has been good with that with the Lions. I know they may or may not be missing St. Brown, but the rest of the offense has been humming pretty well. So I've got to go Lions at home, -3.5. I just see them winning by 2 possessions. Commanders on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are favored by 3. I am not too thrilled about either team. I think that the Cowboys win this game, but I think this is a less than 3 situation. You can't tell me that the Commanders are any better than the Cowboys, but you can't tell me they're worse than the Cowboys either. They both... And I just don't think that this is a spot for the team to really be favored by 3 or more. I feel like this is a pick'em game. I feel like this is maybe a -1 game. I think 3 points is too much. I'm taking the Commanders plus 3. Cardinals +1 at the Panthers. Now, I don't understand how the Cardinals are not favored in this situation. I understand that they've been not as strong this year as I predicted, but what is Mayfield doing to light you up? I don't think you can take advantage of the defensive situation the Cardinals are in. The Panthers defense is solid, but Kyler Murray is going to make that difficult with his legs. I just feel like the Cardinals are the better team. I think the coaches are about even in the situation. The quarterback goes to Kyler. I don't know. 2 things going Cardinals way out of the 3. I got to go Cardinals +1. Broncos +2.5 at the Raiders. The Raiders are somehow winless, guys, and I just don't understand how that is, but I think that gets fixed this week. I think that the Broncos are pretty awful, and they've been very lucky to be 2-1. And I think after this week they go 2-2. The Raiders, they just need time. They've got all these new pieces that are great that need to get used to the continuity of the rest of their team. Adams has popped off once, been quiet a couple other games. I think Renfro's on the way back in, so he's still got Waller. This Raiders team, I just think needs time, but I think they covered us 2.5 and they win the game by 4 or 5 points. Patriots +9.5 at the Packers, and I have struggled with this one all week. Patriots, no Mac Jones, but they have Ramondre Stevenson, who's been having a couple of good games. The rush has been great. Defense has been really solid. The Packers have not faced the defense quite as good as New England. Maybe they faced Tampa. Yeah, Tampa's pretty good defense. Let's take that back. They faced Tampa last week. I think this is a similar situation. How is Green Bay supposed to score a lot? How is the Patriots supposed to score? I don't know. I think this is a low-scoring game. I think this is like a 21 to 17, 21 to 15 type of game. I gotta lay the 9.5. I don't love it, but it's just I gotta make a pick, and that's what it is. Only 2 more games left. The Kansas City Chiefs on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think this is where the Chiefs bounce back and get a W. I think that they're healthier than what Tampa Bay is. I think that this is going to be a phenomenal matchup, but I think they win by field goal. Lastly, the Rams and the 49ers. The Rams +1.5 at the 49ers, and I struggle with taking the Rams. I don't know if I can do it yet. The Rams have not shown that they were the same team as they were last year. The Niners got Kittle back with a full week of practice. They got Garoppolo back with a full week of practice. This is at San Fran. I just feel like this line is right. I think the Niners win by 3 or more, and I'll take the Niners -1.5. Rams have got to really step up this week if they're really gonna show up. They got some work to do. But everybody, that's all I've got this week. That's my picks for every single game. Want to know after Thursday night, had Cincinnati -4 there. Love to see that. But thank you for stopping by the Majinbuusha podcast. I'm Majinbuusha, and you can find me on the UpUrXP platform on anywhere you listen to your podcast and your shows. Thank you so much. Majin out.